Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I'll be providing a discussion of my top 10 favorite fantasy book covers. To begin with, I'll say that these are mostly books that I've read. There is only one book on my list, I believe, that I actually haven't read, and that's because that book I was so enamored with the cover art when I saw it, and I was like, I haven't even read the book. That's an impressive book cover. I have not found that book anywhere, so one day I will have to find it. But regardless, here's my list of my top 10. The other 9 I have read, and it is kind of interesting to me because they say don't judge a book by its cover, but oftentimes the cover is what is meant to drive the reader to read the book. Sometimes it's the blurb, sometimes it's the author, sometimes it's the subject matter, and sometimes it's just the genre or something. But a lot of times the cover is of tantamount importance to draw in the reader. And I am a firm believer that a good cover art is very much necessary in order to properly sell a book. And some of my favorite books I've read because I found the cover art so intriguing. And in fact, many of those I will mention on this list. And so I really invite people to discuss what your cover arts are. You will tell overall, not all my covers are the same, but there's an overarching style you will definitely see here. But let me know your thoughts on cover art in the comments down below, and what your favorite cover artists and favorite covers are. I love to check out more new covers if possible. I will say that you will notice that of my top 10, 5 of them will all be the same cover artist, and that is Daryl K Suite. Daryl K Suite is by far my absolute favorite cover artist of all time. I love it whenever I see a new Daryl K Suite cover art, because I don't know how he did it, but his style, specifically with his fantasy books, but really in any artwork I've seen of his style is so distinct and so visceral and so enveloping, and it makes me feel like if I'm trying to get a little kid to read, I show them one of Daryl K Suite's cover arts, and that'll let their imagination go wild about what the book could be about. And I really like that style. Style, I've always been intrigued by his cover art. And then about a year ago, I went out and I purchased a book called Beyond Fantasy by Daryl K Suite, where he showcases a lot of his cover art. He does not go through every painting he's ever done, but he does quite a few in here. And I looked through this, and I've read through it so many times. It is a used book. I got it from a used, because you can't find this book new. It's not in print anymore, so it's a little rough around the edges. But it is my only coffee table book I have, because I am so enamored with the cover art of this thing. And one of the artworks I'll discuss in this video, I only saw because of this, but most of the other things are books I either own or have read or have seen. So why don't I kick it off with my number 10? And my number 10 favorite cover art is the Sword of Shannara reissue cover art by Steve Stone. This is a book that I picked up. This was the first fantasy book I ever read, and this is the first cover art that caught my eye as a reader. And I was going through Books A Million, and I saw this cover, and this cover was what made me pick up this book and start my journey in my love of fantasy. And this cover art it shows Paranor, or what I assume is to be Paranor, and it shows a character who's really small in comparison in the foreground with Paranor in the background, and it shows the scope of this world. And the cover art just has this feel of castles and individuals, and there isn't like a dragon on the cover, but you get that epic fantasy vibe from it. This is a little bit different style necessarily than I would normally go for. This seems a little bit more realistic than I prefer in my styles, but still, the scale of this cover art is what really impressed me, and why I really like this book's cover by Steve Stone. My number 9 is the Crystal Shard reissue cover by Todd Lockwood. This is a very interesting cover because this is such a vivid moment that as soon as this moment happened in the book, I was like, this is exactly what I would have envisioned had I been tasked with drawing the art. Now, I am a terrible artist. I couldn't draw anything to save my life. But if I had talent, this is the type of thing I would draw for the cover for this book, because it shows elves and dwarves and men and barbarians fighting against these giants and against these evil creatures, and you see, the spit coming out of the giant, and you see all the details of the battle going on, and it makes you feel like very cinematic, I would say. It feels like this is the art that would be done in preparation for a movie to come out. And I really like that style. And so that's my number 9. My number 8 is the cover art for Beren and Luthien. The cover art is by Alan Lee. This is for one of the Tolkien books that was released after Tolkien's death, and his son, Christopher Tolkien, edited the book. And first of all, it's my favorite Tolkien work. It is a fantastic book anyway, but the cover art by Alan Lee is really distinctive. It is very much an Alan Lee cover art. I would say Alan Lee is probably my favorite Tolkien cover artist. I think he gets Tolkien better than anyone else visually, and I'm really glad they used him on some of The Hobbit. I think that's why I like The Hobbit so much. But he has such a very distinct Tolkien-ish style in his artwork, and this artwork just shows the differences between the human and the elf. It shows how big the wolf, I am forgetting what it's called, warg riders, the warg, I think it is. It's just an impressive. That's not a warg, whatever. Anyway, whatever that creature is, it is just an impressive visual, and it has, the book already has a kind of Romeo and Juliet romantic vibe to it, and this cover art really enhances that vibe. And so I really like this cover art. My number 7 is the first Daryl K Suite on the list, and it is from a series that I've talked about a lot on the channel, and that is Worldbinder from the Rune Lords series. This, wow, what can I say about this cover art? Worldbinder is just, whoa. It captures your eye. You have the creature with the wings, and then you have the girl with the wings, and then she's standing over with the knife over the male character, and it makes you really wonder, what on earth is that creature that's looming behind her? Why does she have wings like that? And if you read the book, you wonder that throughout the book, because this moment is later on in the book, and so it's a fantastic cover art. It really makes you think visually what is happening in the story, makes you question what's happening in the book, and I think it serves as an excellent way to draw in a new audience who doesn't know anything about the Rune Lords. And this was an excellent kind of transition book in the Rune Lords too, into the newer era. And so it's just really visceral what this book does. Now we get to my number 6, which is Rhythm of War by Michael Whelan. I would say that Michael Whelan is probably the only current cover artist making cover styles that I enjoy. I go through Barnes & Noble all the time, and I look through the cover arts, and the books are intriguing to me, but generally I do not like the cover art. I do not think I want to display that cover, or I don't think I'm going to buy like a print of that and put it up as a poster or something. I never get that from really any books that I see anymore. The exception is with Michael Whelan. His books give me that feeling, and of his copies of, or his artists for artwork for the Stormlight Archive, Rhythm of War is the one that really, I thought, the way he used the colors. You have Shallan on that front cover, and you have the darkness behind her, but she and that thing near her really radiates light and really makes her stand out. And her red hair against the dark blues of the cover really are interesting. And then when you you pan the cover and you see the back and you see that weird tower and you see the creatures and the weird water and then you see Adolin behind her. It just makes you wonder about what's happening in the book at this moment and where they are. And I have not read this one yet. I have it. I own it. I've read the first 3 Starlight and I have book 4. I'm going to read it this summer. I've been saving it because it's a huge book and I want to have time to read it. But man, is this cover big and it's vibrant and it plays light against dark. You know, I'm always talking about in movies that I prefer movies with light coloring and more bright colors, and I'm usually poo-pooing movies that have dark coloring. Well, this is an instance where he used light and dark really well and it meshed perfectly for me, and so that's why this is my number 6. Now getting into my top 5, I have a repeat book but a very different cover art. This is The Sword of Shannara cover art by the brothers Hildebrandt, and this is the OG cover art for the book, and very, very interesting cover art here. So this cover makes me think of that Tolkien-ish fantasy, that very much 70s and 80s fantasy. If I was to think of like a D&D campaign, I would think of something with this. The dark colors with the little bit of light coming from the torch in this. It's just an overall very well done cover art. It's interesting that the brothers Hildebrandt did the first Sword of Shannara book, and then they didn't do the artwork for the next couple ones. The next couple ones were Daryl K Suite, which is kind of funny. I actually like this better than the ones that he did, although he did a good job with the ones he did too. But the Sword of Shannara, it has this classic feel to it. Not necessarily a fantasy feel, although it does, I think, give off fantasy vibes, but it has a classic vibe that I really appreciate. And so that's why it's my number 5. Now, the rest of these will all be Daryl K Suite covers. So that's what you can expect. But we're getting into my number 4, which is a book that I know very little, if not nothing about, and that is Bishop's Heir by Daryl K Suite. This is an interesting book cover. This was a book from 1984. The book was written by Catherine Kurtz, and what I really like about this cover is the way that the characters are played out. You have this one character in the very front that captures your eye in the armor, and then he has his flag bearer next to him on the horse, and then on the horse next to him is a man who's carrying a woman in a blue dress, and the blue dress with the red hair on the woman is very much stands out against the gray, or against the brown colors of the horses and the soldiers and the white background. It really makes the woman stand out, but also the red of the main soldier in the front stands out too. And then you have the line of horses behind them. And I don't know why exactly, but this kind of reminds me of an old Civil War photo or Civil War painting where you have the line of soldiers and then you have maybe the commander in the front on horseback with his bannermen, that type of thing. This cover art, I don't know anything about the book itself, but this cover art makes me want to read the book. And this is one, if I ever see it in a bookstore, I've promised, this is one of those books that I'm like, if I ever see this book in the bookstore, I'm getting it. I don't plan to seek it out on the internet just yet, because I know I could do that. But for right now, if I ever see it in the bookstore, I'm getting it, which is good. That's exactly what you want with cover art. Now we get into my number 3, and this is another Rune Lords book, and that is Wizardborn, the cover art by Daryl K Suite. This is a cover that, as a piece of art, is brilliant, but as a piece of marketing for the book, is frustrating, because this makes this scene from this book seem really important and big, and this scene lasts literally a couple of pages. The froth giants, which I always thought was funny because it kind of reminded me of frost giants from the Thor movies. No, the froth giants from this series are talked about how big they are and how powerful they can be, and they're built up in the first two books. You never see them in the first two books, but characters say, "Oh no, there's reports that frost giants are moving, and they're bringing 200 of them. Oh my, 200!" And so they're built up in the first two books, and when you get to them in this book, it's really underwhelming what happens with them. I won't go further. I don't want to discuss further, but anyway, so it's really underwhelming. But the cover art is fantastic. You have, as I talked about, scale. You have the big giant with the little people, and they're on horseback, and yet they still are completely dwarfed by this giant. You have, the man and the woman on horseback, and then you have a bunch of soldiers, which some of the soldiers actually kind of look like Donald Trump wearing armor, which is really funny to me. But you have a bunch of soldiers down here, but the froth giant is so detailed, and I just feel like this is an animation come to life. Like, I could see this in a really well done animated movie, and that looks really good, and it makes me want to find out what happens in that scene. As I said, bad marketing for the book, since that scene is basically nothing in the book, but really cool cover artwork. Now we're getting into my number two. And my number two is from the Wheel of Time series. It is The Eye of the World, the first book. Now, I have to say, I love all 14 of the Wheel of Time book covers, the OG covers. I know a lot of big YouTubers like to complain about those book covers, and they prefer the new style, which I absolutely don't understand. The new style looks so modern and looks so like it's so vividly different. And this style makes you think 90s epic fantasy, which is exactly the style that I want the artwork to say. And I could have made all the top 10 The Wheel of Time book covers because they really are all excellent. But for one, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to just be Wheel of Time on here. And two, I didn't want to do that because I don't think all of them are necessarily as good as the first one. So I just decided to include Eye of the World here. And I know that that people don't like how small the female character is on here versus how big the soldier is on here, and you have Lan and Moraine as the characters, and I really like it because it made me go, why is she the forefront of the book along with the soldier, and why does she look like a wizard? I automatically knew by looking at this cover that Moraine was going to be the Gandalf of this series, that she was going to be the wise wizard-like character who's bringing everyone on the quest, on the journey. And I really was intrigued, and then you have the party lining up as the cover continues on, and you have that moonlight sky that really centers around the main characters. If the characters turned toward the camera, toward the reader, it would almost look like a movie poster from Marvel or something, where you have the Thor Ragnarok, where all the characters are lined up in the center of it with the circles around them. But I love this cover art, and this is one of the... I read The Wheel of Time, one, because my cousin suggested it, two, because I heard rumblings about it in the fantasy community, and three, because of the cover arts that I saw that really intrigued me. That's really good job if your cover art pulls you in. So that's exactly it. Now, we're getting into my number one. And my number one will either shock you, or you will be not surprised at all in any form or fashion. My number one is the Rune Lords. It's the Sum of All Men cover by Daryl K Suite. And I talk about this so much, but this cover where you have what look to be ghosts talking to this main heroic character who is kneeling, and there seems to be a crown of leaves that is going towards him, and you see the female character standing behind him looking proud and strong, and you have this kind of orange tint to it that makes the whole book feel like it's set like in the fall. This is a really good fall read, I think, because of the way that David Farland talks about nature in the book. But just the way that this cover, I had no care. Like, I had read a David Farland book before when under his name Dave Wolverton for Star Wars. Didn't really like the book. And I didn't have anything drawing me in for this book. I didn't. The premise wasn't really engaging. I didn't know the author that well, and what little I did know wasn't good. And I hadn't heard people talk about this book much. However, I picked it up because the cover art looked so good, and it became one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, the one I certainly talk about the most on the channel. I have other book series. I know I talk about the Rune Lords a lot. I have other book series that I like more, Wheel of Time, the Cosmere, things like that. But the thing is that those are talked ad nauseum in the fantasy community, and so I haven't really felt the need to discuss those as much, whereas the Rune Lords is not discussed at all. So, but anyway, that's my favorite cover art, and that's my list, my top 10. What are your top 10 favorite cover arts, or top 5 if you only have that, or just your top 1? I want discussion, and if you have put thought into it, who's your favorite cover artist that you consistently like their works? I've seen other cover artists that have done a good job imitating the style of Daryl K Suite, and so I've liked a few others, but no one's ever come close to just nailing it, or picture after picture after picture. So I really like this cover art, so let me know down in the comments down below what your opinions are, and thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.